Have you ever stumbled across a story online that hits you so hard it doesn't even feel like just some random post? Today I was scrolling through Reddit and found a few stories like that. Way too real, way too creepy to ignore. I've got a feeling you're going to want to hear these. So, no more waiting, let's dive right in.
Story 1.
The man walked in at 2 a.m., dragging something black behind him. The way it moved didn't sit right. Neither did he. The receptionist felt it immediately. The way he walked, stiff and uneven like a scarecrow with one leg shorter than the other. He had greasy blonde hair beneath a 10-gallon hat, spurs clicking as he moved. I watched the security footage later. His lips were white and thin, his teeth crooked. His mouth twisted into a half smile, like he was seconds from laughter. He was dragging a massive black Rottweiler. The dog resisted, back paws sliding across the floor. The camera didn't pick up sound, but later, the two gals at reception told me what he said. He's acting possessed. They handed him intake forms. He hobbled back to a bench, and I watched through the lens as another client, a woman holding a cat carrier, subtly slid a few seats away. I looked up his paperwork. The address led to a warehouse in Tennessee, 3 states away. The name seemed fake too. Keaton Scruggs. No records. No online presence. But the dog's name? Mutt. That was the only detail I believed. You might wonder why I checked. It's not standard protocol. I don't usually do this. But the events of the last few nights led me to my search. When he handed the paperwork back, he sat down again, dragging the dog with him like a sack of flour. He leaned against the wall, arms folded, eyes fixed ahead. He barely moved, like a corpse propped upright. His dog didn't move much either. Just sat there, waiting. We see a lot of characters here. Some genuinely kind folks, too. But this man? Something about him was wrong. I stepped into the lobby to bring him into an exam room. It took him a second to register me, like he was in a trance. And then the smell hit me. Stale cigarettes, gas fumes, and beneath that, something worse. A rotten, greasy stench that clung to the air. The dog sat still, vacant, a husk. It was like someone had lobotomized it. As it stood there, drool began dripping from its mouth, pooling on the floor. I introduced myself and got to work. So, what's going on with Mutt today? Keaton didn't answer right away. His eyes drifted to the ceiling, like he was watching something flutter above us. Oh, he just ain't acting right. He ain't been eating much. This is usually where clients start rambling. Some could go on for hours if you let them. But he was done, still staring at the ceiling through those dirty locks of hair. When I knelt to take the dog's heart rate, the second my fingers touched its skin, a wrongness crawled into me. That tingle before lightning strikes. That creeping dread when something awful is about to happen. The vitals were normal, heart rate, breathing. But skin was cold. 97 degrees, lower than we like. It was mildly dehydrated, maybe 4%. But when I peeled back its loose lips to check its gums, I felt like I was too close to something I shouldn't be. The gums were pale. The pupils locked onto me, dilated. It wasn't growling. No hackles raised. Just watching, like it was restraining itself. That feeling of unease was sickening. "Don't turn your back on him," the man said. I paused, mid-turn. "Excuse me. If you're going to walk from him, do it fasten. Otherwise, something bad might happen." I exhaled sharply, irritated. He'd watched me get close to the dog, lean in, listen to it. Yet now he decided to warn me it was aggressive. I liked this situation less and less. The man, the dog, the way this whole thing sat in my gut like spoiled food. I backed away, facing the dog. It watched me, intently, like I was prey, like I was meat. A few moments later, our on-site emergency veterinarian, Dr. Harkham, came in. Old school, no nonsense. He and Keaton exchanged few words. The vet recommended blood work and an overnight stay with an 4-fluid drip. The dog needed warming up too. Keaton never lost that dumb smile, that half-cocked grin, like something was hilarious. But he nodded, accepted the treatment plan. We want to take the dog into the back treatment area. I slipped a muzzle on, of course, and that's when I noticed it wouldn't walk. The owner had dragged it behind him earlier, but now it wasn't lethargic. It was choosing not to move. I had a larger male staff member, Ryan, carry the dog for me. As he picked it up, he glanced at me. We didn't exchange words, but I knew he felt it too. Not just the dog, the air. When we went to draw blood from its jugular, it didn't even react. Ryan held the dog steady, hands firm on either side of its head, jaws up. The needles slipped in. The syringe filled. The blood was cold. I ran it through the machines. Just mild dehydration. Some elevated lipase hinting at pancreatitis. No infection. Nothing to explain why it was so cold. We placed it into a heated kennel, tucked it in with blankets, hooked up the 4 catheter. I was relieved when Keaton left. That was 3 days ago. That night was quiet. Rare for an emergency hospital. We had another dog kenneled 2 spaces down from the Rottweiler. A cattle dog that had undergone emergency laparotomy. It had been doing fine. Normal vitals. Good appetite. Responsive. 2 hours later, I checked on it, and the cattle dog was dead. It had torn open its own incision. Somehow it had gotten its cone off, and it had attacked itself. Not licking, not nibbling, mutilating. Even when coils of intestine unfurled from its abdomen, it had kept biting at those guts. Like they were coiled snakes, and he was killing them. The dog was slouched over, head limp against the floor. The blood ran in bright ribbons, swirling toward the kennel drain behind him, which slurped up the blood greedily. The kennel was a bloodbath. It streaked the walls, spattered the ceiling. His intestines had leaked bile and partially digested sludge. The cattle dog's eyes were vacant orbs, glistening in the light. I stood still for a moment, taking in the horror, the violence, and 2 kennels down, Mutt, sitting, watching, fluid drip running, heater humming, lips curled back, not panting, not whining, just smiling. His eyes reflected the fluorescent light, and for one sickening second, they looked almost human. Calling that cattle dog's owner was one of the hardest things we've ever done. Dr. Harkin made the call, but I heard every word, every choked sob through the thin walls of our office. The owner didn't just cry. They wailed. I'd seen plenty of death in this job, but this was different. This wasn't bad luck. Something else had its hands in this. The mood in the hospital shifted. In all my years, I'd never seen a dog unzip itself like a gym bag and spill out its intestines. Each time we walked past Mutt's kennel, his head turned slowly to follow. Each bloody towel, each mop bucket. Every time we passed that black body bag, the cattle dog-sized bag, zip-tied and labeled, Mutt watched. That night was quiet, but it didn't feel like a break. It felt like the storm waiting to hit. At some point, hours after the cattle dog's death, I heard the steady beeping of a monitor from the kennel ward. The 4 pump hooked up to Mutt. I didn't want to go, but I did. I brought Ryan. We slipped the muzzle over Mutt's head easily. Too easily. He didn't resist, didn't flinch, just let it happen. His eyes followed the movement of our hands as we buckled it snugly behind his head. Only his eyes moved. 2 dark orbs. Watching. Digesting. The dog had kinked the 4 line beneath its paw. We moved it aside, smoothed it out. That should have been it. A simple fix. But as we turned to leave, the light above his kennel flickered. At first, just a slight flicker. Barely noticeable. Then it sputtered, dimmed, and cut out completely. The kennel dropped into shadow. Ryan and I froze. The only light now was a faint glow from the hallway behind us. We exchanged a glance. Neither of us spoke. Neither of us wanted to acknowledge what we were feeling. The air in the room changed. Heavy, buzzing, like the static before a storm. Then the 2 tube lights above Mutt's kennel flared, so bright it hurt to look at them. A pop, then a sizzle. And they died. Everything was silent. Ryan's back was to Mutt. Mutt lunged. A surge of violence. Muzzle strapped tight, body lunging forward. He slammed his head against Ryan's side, ramming into him again and again. Ryan screamed. The dog was silent, except for the mechanical snapping of his jaws, working beneath the muzzle. Spittle flying. Ryan twisted, trying to stand, but the sudden attack had taken him off guard. I reacted without thinking. Threw open the kennel door. Mutt rammed into Ryan again, harder this time. The sheer force knocked him off balance. Ryan writhed around to grab Mutt. The moment he faced Mutt, the dog stilled. It stood there, silent, watching, bathed in the new darkness. Something was wrong with this dog. Not neurologically. Something deeper. It felt intelligent. It felt calculating. It felt evil. Ryan was shaken, and so was I. But we didn't talk about it. We just got out of there. The rest of the night passed without incident. I focused on my other cases: a Chihuahua with pneumonia, a Persian cat having low-grade seizures, a tabby with proprioception deficits. I went through the motions, but my mind was elsewhere. Ryan seemed dazed, like something fresh had broken inside of him. It wasn't just shock, or trauma, or fear. It was more profound than that. I left for the night, still shaken. Ryan didn't even wave goodbye. I chain-smoked cigarettes in my car before driving home. Flicked the butts out the window. My hands were shaking the entire ride. And when I finally collapsed into bed, I pulled my pistol out of my purse and slipped it under my pillow. And as the sun crept over the horizon, my dreams were wrong. I dreamed of a black face snarling in the dark, leaning in, sniffing, eyes like hollow pits, endless swirling voids, teeth sinking into my flesh. Not a bite, not an attack, but a slow, deliberate pressure, easing into my skin. When I woke, my sheets were damp with sweat. When I came in for my shift that night, I felt a deep sense of disappointment the second I walked past Mutt's kennel. He was still there, heater purring, eyes following. The lights above his kennel were still blown out. The ones beside them had started to flicker. Ryan called out sick, said he'd been throwing up since the night before. I had a feeling there was more to the story, but I didn't have time to dwell on it. I shot him a text wishing him well. He read it, didn't reply. And that sinister, eerie man who called himself Keaton? His phone went straight to dial tone when we tried calling for case update. He wasn't coming back. He'd paid half his bill up front in crisp, old $100 bills. We weren't getting the other half. The night was busier. I told my manager we shouldn't put any other dogs in that ward, but we didn't have a choice. Our small animal ward was on the other side of the building, but for the larger dogs, they had to go there. We admitted a Great Dane with liver disease. There was nowhere else to put him. So I placed him in the kennel farthest from Mutt, 2 down from the cattle dog that had ripped itself apart. When I went back to check on him 10 minutes later, I just stopped cold. Mutt's kennel was wide open. The latch was undone. The door swung open. He wasn't on fluids anymore. No pump to beep. No leash. No sign of how it had happened. Just him, sitting at the threshold, staring, slack-jawed. I shut the kennel, latched it securely, left the room, came back with 2 plates of food. Immediately, I felt nauseous. The kennel was open again. I hadn't heard a sound, hadn't seen the door move. The only way to unlatch these kennels is with hands. With opposable thumbs, I slammed it shut again, this time locking it with a makeshift carabiner clip. I slid 1 plate of food under each kennel. Low fat for the Dane, critical care for Mutt. I was walking away when I heard it. A sound that froze me. Not a growl, not a whine. It sounded like someone trying to speak through a mouth full of water. Like a deep, male voice gargling on words before spitting them out. A dog trying to talk. I turned. Mutt sat there, watching, silent now. Something tingled in the air. But the Dane had begun to cry. His plate of food lay spilled across the kennel floor. His hackles were raised, his body pressed against the back wall, eyes flicking toward the ceiling. He was feeling something deep and inexplicable. I felt it too. When I reached for the kennel bars, the crying stopped. The Dane's body trembled. Then his whimpering changed, deepened. A low, eerie sound, like a tornado siren. Then it stopped altogether. The dog went still. Too still. Then all at once, he attacked his own leg. Not chewing. Not licking. Ripping. Breaking. Deep pulverizing bites. Bone cracked. Blood spattered the kennel floor. It wasn't a dog in pain. It wasn't a dog in distress. It was something else. Something destroying itself with purpose. I couldn't go in there. If I did, he'd likely redirect onto me, send me to the hospital. I turned and ran, shouting for help as I sprinted through the clinic. Dr. Harkham and 2 other techs, Angie and Denise, came rushing out of an exam room at the sound of my frantic screaming. I grabbed a rabies catch pole. The Dane was still going. The flesh of its leg hung in shreds, barely attached. Blood spurted like shots from a water gun, pulsing in rhythm with its heartbeats from a severed artery. I slipped open the kennel and looped the catch pole around its neck, tightening it hard, wrenching its head just enough to stop it from lunging. It snapped at the air, frantic but no emotion behind it. Then it latched onto the metal pole. Not out of panic, not out of rage, out of a bizarre corruption of instinct. The sound was unbearable, teeth breaking against metal, splintering, shattering. The flesh of its leg was nearly gone, just a ragged mess of meat and exposed bone that flapped as it chewed at the metal. I saw part of a fractured canine fall out of its mouth. The catchpole was bloody, dented but holding firm. The dog was weakening by the time Dr. Harkham arrived, slumping over in the pile of its own blood. By the time we managed to inject a sedative, it was too late. The blood loss was too severe. The Dane fully collapsed to the floor, body twitching, biting. All at once, its eyes glazed over, and it went still. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Mud, lips pulled back in a snarl, smiling. When is that fucking dog going to leave? I snapped, pointing at him. Dr. Harkham shot me a sharp look. His white coat was streaked with blood. His eyes were dark, hollowed with exhaustion. Something is wrong with it, I insisted. With him, all I see is a dog who just mutilated itself in our care, he said. The second one in 2 days. Don't worry about that fucking dog. We have bigger issues here. I have another owner to call. Another person I have to tell their pet killed itself. Under my watch, he flicked blood from his fingers, dragged a sleeve across his face. He was years past burnout, a shell of his former self. He couldn't see what I saw. He couldn't see the way Mutt watched, the way his eyes lingered over the carnage pooling beneath my feet, like he was enjoying it. Dr. Harkham sighed, rubbing a hand down his face. We tried calling that creepy bastard again. Number's out of service. He ditched the dog on us. That meant we had to rehome it. It could take weeks. I couldn't take weeks with him. None of us could. And as I looked into Angie's eyes, I knew she felt the same. The hospital settled into an uneasy silence. The night shift pressed on, but something had shifted. We were all exhausted, hollowed out by what we'd seen. The cattle dog, the Great Dane, the blood. Mutt still sat in his kennel, untouched food at his feet, heater humming. Watching, 2 more lights flickered out while I cleaned. I mopped blood from the floors, the thick iron scent clinging to my skin. The towels we used to soak up the mess were soaked through a deep, ugly red. And through it all, Mutt never looked away. I told myself I'd figure something out. I just needed time. But time wasn't on my side. I was dumping a load of bloody towels into the laundry bin when I heard it. Elia Histonson. I dropped everything. A voice, thick and wet, slurred in a way no dog's throat was built to produce. It wasn't a bark. It wasn't a growl. It was trying to speak. And what came out wasn't just a sound. It was a name. My name. Allison. I turned, stomach lurching. Mutt was sitting in his kennel. Still, muzzle slack, drool pooling on the blanket beneath him. His pupils swallowed the light. I couldn't move. My brain was trying to rationalize it, try to shove what I had just heard into a box of normalcy. Maybe I'd misheard. Maybe it was the pipes or monitor, but then the smell hit me. Oat. Not just the smell of the hospital, not just the faint antiseptic and animal musk that always clung to the air. This was meat left in the sink for weeks. This was something dead wedged into the cracks of the world. And I realized then, the smell I caught when Keaton first walked into the lobby, that greasy, putrid stench, it hadn't been him. It had been the dog. I ran. I grabbed the blankets off the floor, shoved them into the laundry bin, and bolted. My hands shook as I crammed the lid shut. My pulse was a hammer in my ears. Don't turn your back on it. The memory of Keaton's words crawled down my spine like a cold hand. He's acting possessed. I knew what Mutt had tried to do to Ryan. I knew what he wanted to do to me. And now I knew. I wasn't waiting for him to act. I was going to kill him. I kept my head down the rest of the shift, biding my time. My mind wasn't on the cases I took. I worked on autopilot. I went through the motions, but my body was moving without me. And when I got a moment alone, I pulled up 20 milliliters of pentobarbital sodium and phenytoin sodium solution. Euthisol, the sparkling pink liquid we use to put animals down. I took enough to kill a dog twice Mutt's size. There'd be a discrepancy in the controlled substance log, but I could smooth it out over the next few weeks. A couple of slightly higher doses on euthanasia cases, logged with enough time between them, and no one would notice. I locked the cabinet, slid the syringe into my pocket. I was committing a crime breaking DEA laws. I could lose my license, my career, even end up in jail. But deep in my bones, I knew one thing. That thing in the kennel. It needed to die. The next morning, when I arrived for my shift, the hospital was heavy with grief. Everyone was crying. Ryan was dead. He'd taken his own life in his trailer sometime after leaving work. No details. No explanation. Just gone. The police had come by to inform us. They didn't stay long. Didn't need to. I knew then. It cemented in my mind what had to be done. I don't know how, but I knew. I didn't wait. I worked through the grief, through the horror, pushing it all into a place I'd deal with later. I waited for the right moment. A lull between shift changes when staffing was light. I approached Mutt's kennel. His head was cocked, eyes tracking me. He looked almost expectant. I opened the kennel door and slid the muzzle over his face quickly. My hands moved with a sharpness I hadn't felt before. I yanked the straps too tight. My pulse was steady. I leaned out of the room, peered around the corner. No one coming. I held Mutt's paw, feeling for the vein, my other hand already slipping the needle beneath the skin. The syringe in my palm felt hot. I pushed the plunger. It was difficult, so much volume to inject. But I pushed it all. Every last drop. Normally, when an animal is euthanized, it happens fast. They slump. Their eyes stay open. Their bodies give up, but didn't move. I could have killed a human with this much euthasol, but he just sat there. I stared at him, heart pounding, my breath coming sharp. They usually pass away before the syringe is empty. Their bodies relax. Their eyes go distant. The tension of life slipping from them like a sigh. Mutt's body stayed rigid, his breath steady. The drug should have shut him down immediately, but his muscles held, his head remained lifted, eyes locked onto mine. A chill crawled up my spine. This dog should be dead. Then the hallway lights flickered. One by one, the bulbs sizzled out, plunging the kennel ward into darkness. The air thickened, heavy with the weight of something unseen. The heater stopped. The only glow came from the exit sign at the far end of the hall, casting a weak green wash over the kennels. The shadows twisted around me. I couldn't move. The door to the kennel slammed shut behind me. My breath hitched. The silence was absolute. The only sound was the slow, wet rasp of Mutt's breathing. I could feel him in the dark, the weight of his presence sinking like teeth into my skin. Then, Elia Histonson, the voice came from the kennel. Thick, gurgling wrong. A sound like a dog learning to speak, like a throat filled with crunching gravel, trying to shape words. The vowels stretched, dripping with something slick and inhuman. My stomach lurched. I reached for the latch, fingers fumbling, but my hands were slick with sweat. My breathing was too loud. The darkness pressed in. The rot smell thickened, crawling up my throat. Then I felt it. A cold, dead hand close around my ankle. I choked on a scream. My body jolted as something gripped me, nails pressing into my skin, curling against the fabric of my scrubs. The air turned electric, static snapping against my skin. I turned and ran. The door gave way beneath my shoulder, and I burst into the hallway, feet pounding against the tile. Behind me, I heard the kennel door smash open, the sound of paws, heavy and fast, hitting the ground. He was coming. I sprinted blindly through the dark, my shoulder slamming into the wall as I searched for the door handle. My fingers scraped smooth wood, no knob, no latch, just cold, endless surface. Paws pounded closer. No grodin, no isnnarin, no warning, just movement. A freight train of silence, barreling toward me. I spun, pressing my back against the door. The darkness was absolute, thick and suffocating. The emergency lights had died, swallowing the building in shadow. But I could hear him, breathing. Slow, wet, thick with something I couldn't name. Then a whisper of movement, so close I felt the air shift. I bolted down the hall. No thought, no plan, just instinct. My body moved. I reached my locker, yanked it open, hands scrambling for my purse. The air behind me shifted. A weight. A presence. I felt it before I saw it. A void, yawning open. My fingers closed around cold metal. The grip of my handgun. I turned, raised the barrel, and fired. The first shot lit up the hall like a camera flash. In that brief flicker, I saw him, that snarling grin. The second shot. The third. His body jerked, but he didn't fall. His lips were still curled back in that awful rictus. The sixth and final shot hit its mark. The left side of his skull caved inward, the muzzle of his face blown apart. His jaw sagged open, tongue limp. And even as he fell, his head twitched. A violent, unnatural snap of movement. A thick, wet pop echoed down the hall. He swayed. Then, finally he dropped. I stood there, gun trembling in my hands, ears ringing. The darkness still pulsed around me, thick and heavy, pressing in from all sides. Then footsteps, shouts, voices. Someone grabbed my arm, yanking me back. The lights flickered, buzzed, then flared back to life. And for the first time, I saw what I had done. One shot had buried itself in the tile. The rest had hit him. Mutt lay on his side, his head a ruin of blood and bone. His chest rose once, twice. Then he went still. The bite muzzle was missing. He must have pulled it off somewhere during the chase. I didn't move. The hospital swarmed with people. Cops were called. Questions were asked. I barely registered any of it. They took me into the back office, my hands still shaking, my ears still filled with phantom echoes. I knew what I had to say. I knew how to frame it. Self-defense. I played the part well. The police let me go. Mo was wrapped, bagged, stuffed in our freezer, waiting for cremation. I took time off work, spent days in silence, trying to erase the memory of that voice. It didn't work. The morning I was supposed to return for my shift, I got a phone call. Blocked number. I answered. Slow, shaky breathing filled the line. Then, a laugh. Low, drawling, thick with something I couldn't name. A mouth full of tobacco chew. Or blood. You shouldn't have killed it, little lady. Keaton. His voice slithered through the speaker, curling like a snake around my spine. His laughter built, rising, filling the silence. You've just gone and made things so much worse. And as the laughing turned into hollering, the line clicked dead. I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, staring at nothing. His words sank into my bones. Gone and made things so much worse. My first thought was confusion. How'd he get my number? My second thought was frantic. Those words struck a chord deep inside my marrow. He said I'd made things worse. And for some reason, deep down in my soul, I believed him.
Story 2.
I keep seeing things at night. Faces, usually, or like some sort of silhouette in the corner. Relatable? I'm sure it is, because everyone's mind plays those tricks. Pile clothes on your chair? That shit turns into the Hatman, crouched by the end of your bed at 3 a.m. But lately I'm seeing things that really aren't there. I'll see a figure in the corner of the room, but there's no pile of clothes or hanging bag to explain why my brain convinced itself of this creature's presence. I will see the outline of something in the dark, but as soon as I turn my lamp on, it is literally an empty corner. Full disclosure, I've been known to have hallucinations now and then. I have a pretty mild form of bipolar, and when I've been under incredible stress as a teen, I've had these kind of dreams where I'm actually awake, but just barely. I used to occasionally see things or people in my bedroom, but it would never last long, and I'd always realize it wasn't real. I'm not sure if that meets the criteria for a hallucination or not, because it is in that half-asleep state, but I guess it's important context that I've been known to have a few issues with that kind of thing. You're probably reading that and thinking mystery solved, it's just some sort of hallucination come nightmare. That's what I thought too. I started noticing it after my insomnia would flare up. It's pretty typical for someone with bipolar to have sleep issues, so every now and then my body clock gets fucked over and I'm practically nocturnal. I work at a bar and my shifts vary from afternoon, evening, and evening night, so it's not a huge issue for me as long as I manage to sleep a few hours in the morning. I tend to just lay in bed watching YouTube or Netflix, trying not to disturb my flatmates. I've had these sleep issues for years, and I'm not usually spooked out by the whole 3 a.m. witching hour thing, but for some reason my skin started crawling at around 3 a.m. every night a few months ago. Not because I was aware of the time. To be honest, the night becomes a blur of me attempting to sleep while keeping myself occupied with random video essays or shitty Netflix dramas. But after a few nights of this feeling, I realized it was happening at a similar time. You know that feeling when you've just watched a particularly disturbing psychological thriller, and you can't shake the feeling it's somehow real and you're next, despite knowing full well that's impossible? That's how I described the feeling. I knew, or at least believed, that it was a totally irrational feeling. But that didn't make it go away. Usually I make sure I was watching something chilled out and funny to drown out the feelings and eventually fall asleep. That was until I started seeing things. It was just little shadows in my peripheral vision at first, easy to rationalize away as my mind playing tricks. The outline of a person, something moving in the corner. I think most people think they see things like that when it's late, you're tired, and have the creeps. I would just sense something off, get that feeling someone was watching, mistake a shadow for something more tangible. It took some time before it became prominent enough for me to be actually concerned about it. But then it wasn't just in my peripheries anymore. I could glance over and see something there, if only briefly. Sometimes it was just a black lump, similar to the shape of a person hunched up in a ball. Sometimes I could swear that this thing had a face, just peeking out at me, watching. When I look away to grab my phone for the flashlight, or to turn my lamp on, it would be gone. Even before the light was turned on, I could tell it had vanished. Just looking away was enough to shake the hallucination. So eventually, whenever I'd see something, I'd force myself to look away for a few seconds, and it would be gone. I knew that the more you feed into a paranoia, the stronger it gets, so I tried my best to act like it was nothing. Because of my history with kinda hallucinations, I didn't think it could have been real. I doubled down hard on my plan of just looking away and not giving this thing any attention, and I was sure it would just go away if I kept it up. Ghosts aren't real. The strange thing to me was that my life was going pretty well. As I said, the only time I had ever hallucinated was when I was under extreme stress, so I was pretty confused about the whole thing. I loved my job. I had made a lot of new friends, and I overall felt good about myself. So why was this happening now? I knew I should probably speak with a doctor, but honestly I thought once my sleep schedule got a bit more normal that things would clear up naturally. I've never enjoyed the times where my body clock gets stuck on nocturnal mode much. I never feel quite as rested even if I do get a full 8 hours. So I brushed it off as more of a sleep/tiredness issue than anything else. My nightly routine consisted of me trying my hardest to fall asleep before 3 a.m., failing miserably, getting the chills, and avoiding looking at anything other than my laptop screen in front of me. It never quite worked. I'd often see a pale face in my periphery, just peering from the corner, but I refused to give it power. It's all in your head. I'd repeat over and over to myself. After a long shift at work one Friday night, I was incredibly tired, but knew my body probably wouldn't let me sleep until 4/5 a.m., so got stuck into a new Netflix series. I'd become so accustomed to the uncomfortable feeling that always struck me at around 3 a.m. that I nearly didn't notice it beginning. But then it slowly got more noticeable. I couldn't focus on the new series that I was actually enjoying, but I tried to tune back in. I kept telling myself that the less I focus on it, the less power these hallucinations have. Then I saw it. In the corner of my room, the figure just sat upright, staring straight at me. It looked like a person, but something told me it wasn't. I don't know if it was that its smile was too wide, or its eyes too dark and empty. I just knew it wasn't. I looked at it. I looked away. I looked back. Still there. It was so dark, my eyes could just about make out the figure, but I was certain it was there. Like I said before, there was nothing else there, just a blank wall. No furniture, no clothes, nothing that could be mistaken for a figure in the dark. This is when I really stated to doubt that this was just a figment of my imagination. My body froze, but my fingers scrambled to grab my phone and try and get a proper glimpse of this thing. I clicked on the flashlight icon and shone it to the corner of the room. There was nothing there. Clearly this was all in my head. There's just no way that thing was real. I knew something was wrong deep down, but I kept on blaming it on my bipolar and poor sleep. Sure, I'd never had anything like this happen to me other than the odd hallucination as a teenager. And sure, this thing was sticking around longer and longer, but there's just no way it's anything but a hallucination. Despite trying to convince myself of this, I didn't sleep that night. Not until the sun had risen. I think the exhaustion of not sleeping properly mixed with the anxiety I felt for the rest of that day led me to be able to sleep a lot earlier that night. probably at around midnight, after a long shift at work. I slept with the light on, which I usually can't do as it's too disruptive to me, but this time it was comforting. I slept for nearly 12 hours in a restless sleep and woke up with adrenaline coursing through my veins. I often get nightmares that I can't really recall in the morning, which have this effect on me. But with everything that had been happening, it set me off on a bad tone. My room seemed a lot messier than I had remembered leaving it. Clothes left across the floor, my art supplies scattered across my desk, glasses of water across the dresser. I guess I must have been so tired I wasn't really aware of my own actions the night before, but it was odd. I had the day off, so I cleaned up and tried my best to relax for the rest of the day, knowing that stress would only make things worse. Throughout the rest of the day, I suffered with migraines and flashing lights in my vision. Everything felt wrong. That night, I started to doze off at around midnight again. As I looked at the time before I shut my eyes, I felt relieved. This will be the end of those fucked up hallucinations if I can just get my sleep schedule back to normal, I said to myself, knowing the creepy shit only seemed to happen at around 3 a.m., and let myself fall asleep. Then, I was woken up by something. Scratching. Coming from the same corner, I saw that fucking creature. I was almost rhythmic, 4 little fast scratches, a slight pause, and then a fast scratch followed by one long, loud scratch. Over and over and over. I felt terrified to open my eyes. I was sure I was awake, but I tried that technique they teach you about nightmares to try and lucid dream. Try and imagine you're somewhere nice, or you have a shotgun or something. It didn't work. I pinched myself to see if it hurt. It did. I was awake. I finally got the courage to look up at the corner of the room. Sat upright again. The figure had its gaze fixed on me as its wiry fingers played out their little melody. Its face was the same pale shade, with the same dark eyes, but this time its smile was even more gaping and twisted. Its teeth glimmered in the dark. They looked sharp and coated in a dark liquid. That fucking smile, it's nothing I've ever seen before. Its fingers looked pointed and rough as they more and more frantically scratched at my walls. I wanted to scream to get my flatmates to come in and help me, but I didn't want them to think I was insane. What if it really was just my bipolar? What if I was in some sort of psychosis? They were decent people, but we hadn't known each other very long, and I wasn't comfortable sharing my mental health issues with them. I didn't want them to think I was insane. So, I bargained with myself that I would just turn the lamp on, and if it was still there, that was reasonable cause to shout to them for help. It wouldn't prove it's not a hallucination, but it would probably mean I'm so far gone that I need serious help anyway. So, try not to look away this time in fear of it getting closer, I switched on my lamp. Gone. What the actual fuck? I'm going fucking insane, I cried to myself. I decided that first thing in the morning, I would arrange an appointment with my doctor and get some antipsychotics or some shit. But there was no way in hell I was sleeping that night. I didn't care that it was all in my head. That shit was way too scary for me to go through again. I went to go make some coffee when I saw my flatmate in the kitchen, looking mildly infuriated and groggy whilst pouring a glass of water. Hey Lexi, I said, wondering what she was doing up at 3:30 a.m. Hey, what was all that scratching about in your room? Are you, like, cleaning or something? My heart skipped a fucking beat. If she heard scratching too, I ran back into my bedroom. I needed to see if there was any evidence to prove once and for all that this was not all in my head, that this fucking demon existed and wasn't a product of my messed up brain chemistry. I looked at the corner of the room properly, with the main light turned on this time, and I could see scratch marks across the walls. I haven't spoken to Lexi or any of my flatmates. I haven't slept. I haven't turned the light off. But if I'm being totally honest, I don't think keeping the light on will prevent it from coming back. It already developed from a small glance in the corner of my eye to a full figure I can stare at face to face, as if it was getting stronger and stronger, so I expect it will be strong enough to appear in the light soon. In fact, I'm pretty sure I've caught a few glimpses in my peripheral vision already. I don't know what it is or what it wants, but I expect I'll find out soon, one way or another. That's it for today's creepy Reddit tales. Before we go, I just want to say a quick thanks to all of you for watching, liking, and sticking around. You guys keep this channel going, and I'll be back soon with more stories that'll make your skin crawl. Drop a comment if you've got your own spooky tale to share, and I'll see you in the next one.